everyone. Thanks for joining me today. You get a solo episode with me today, and I am actually coming to you from a hotel room near Houston. I'm out of town, and so that is why my background is different. So solo episode today because I had a topic that I wanted to talk about, and so figured I'd just go for it. So let me tell you why I'm in Houston. So my husband, if you watched my 100th episode, it was a while ago because I think we're at 120 or something like that now, almost. My 100th episode was with my husband. If you haven't watched that, you really should. It was really fun. He was a good sport about it. But he and I talked in that video, in that episode, about how, in addition to his full time job, he's also in graduate school. And so he's in an online program, but I guess once a year, he has to come in person to his college to do an in person week. So uh, he asked me to tag along so that we could just have fun, hang out here together. So I came down for the week, and I've been just doing my virtual appointments every day from the hotel room while he's in class doing what he needs to do. And then when I'm done, we go hang out. We have dinner and kind of just spend time. And it's nice not having to have laundry and dishes and dogs. Our son is home with Grammy. So they're hanging out. And so that is actually the topic of our video today. Listen, if you've heard any of my stuff before, then you know that I have an anxious personality. I've always had anxiety. As a child, had anxiety, didn't know that it was anxiety until I was an adult looking back at it, but very clearly had anxiety. And this week has just, we're in constant states of growth and learning things about ourselves. And this week there was no shortage of that. So, in preparation to come down here, so my husband Rich left a couple of days before I did, and then I caught up with him. So as I was preparing to leave, I was trying to get everything ready because while we were going to be gone, our son was still going to be in school. He's 12. He has cross country practice every morning at like 6:30 in the morning, and he had extracurricular activities and school and tests and a school dance and all kinds of stuff this week. And so there was a lot of stuff that just needed to be prepared because, again, learning things about myself. I am a very, I know this about myself. I'm a planner, and everything is prepared, and everything is, I meal prep and I snack prep, and everything is ready to go so that everything is kind of more operational, like factory line type thing, because you never know what's going to happen if something's going to last minute go wrong and I don't have time to make a lunch or whatever. So I try to prep ahead a lot of things so the mornings aren't crazy and things like that. So knowing that I was going to be gone, and to be honest, before COVID, my husband and I used to go out of town more regularly, just the two of us, and our son Tristan was used to us being gone, but it's been a minute. I guess we just don't leave. He always goes with us now. So in anticipation of our trip, I was going into prep mode, which is fine. I wouldn't change that. I think it's really important. I wanted everything to be as smooth as possible while we were gone. But then when it came time to leave, I felt very anxious, and I have hit it fine. I mean, I don't know. I should ask my husband and son to see if that's true. I thought I hit it pretty well. I mean, I was obviously like, saying a lot of like, okay, well, make sure you do this, make sure you do this, and giving a lot of instructions, but I wasn't showing my anxiety. I guess you could say my anxiety was coming out in the form of many instructions, but that's also just my personality. I am like, we've talked in episodes before, you've heard me talk about the primary parent, right? And so being the default parent is the holder of all the things, right? The organizer of all the schedules and prepping all the things, and that's me. So with me being in that role, I delegate and whatever. And so, I was getting ready to leave, and I felt some anxiety from our son just because he wasn't used to us leaving. But once we left, he was fine. But that made me like wonder, well, okay, what if it's the little stuff. Like, what if he goes to school and he doesn't have the right sweatshirt because it's going to be cold in the morning when he runs now? And what if his clothes aren't warm enough? What if they forget to pack his water bottle? What if he doesn't have the right snacks in his lunchbox? Like the dumbest stuff that like really we're gonna be okay. First world problems, right? But like he's gonna be okay. There's cafeteria at school if he has to buy something. He's got money on his account if he has to buy something. Like there's nearly no scenario. And if he forgets something big at home, well, my mother-in-law, Grammy, who's staying with him, will just take it to him. Like it's really not a big deal. If he forgets his medicine, she can run it up there. Like, and I did a pretty good job at creating all my lists with like what needs to happen every morning and every night. So they're not going to forget to pack the lunches or the laptop or take the medicine or feed the fish. Like nothing really is going to go wrong, and anything that could potentially go wrong is really not going to be a big deal. But me being who I am, still kept like I can't. Like I'm okay. I'm not crazy. Again, ask my husband and my child. Ask my mother-in-law. You should know if you don't know this about me. She's like my mom. It's like a second mother. So we have a very good relationship. So when I'm neurotically texting her, asking her, "Hey, did you do this? Did you do this?" She knows I'm neurotic and she's very sweet to me. So it's fine. No one takes it personally. But it showed me, it continues to show me, and I wish I could tell you that I've solved all my problems and I'm coming here to tell you that I've figured out how to not be anxious, but I really haven't. Like, yes, talking it out with my husband, even making this video for you, this is helpful, right? Being able to talk out my crazy, talk out my anxiety, my neurotic tendencies to be a planner, that is helpful because being able to really hear myself say it and think through why I do things the way I do, why certain aspects are incredibly helpful, and why some aspects of it are really just like not necessary, right? And just will drive me crazy. That's important. I have to be able to sort through that. And so the good thing is that throughout this week, and of course, everything has gone off without a hitch, that has been good to help reinforce that my systems that I put in place were important, and I'm glad I did them because they are in large part, why everything has gone off without a hitch. Two, I trust my mother-in-law who is with our son and all the dogs. She's got two dogs. We've got two dogs, and they're all in our house right now. Trust her, trust that she can handle all the things. She will follow my instructions well, and whatever else she feels like she needs to do, I trust her, right? Then also trusting my child to step up to the plate and rise to the occasion, right? So at the age of 12, he's very capable of doing things. And there are things that I do for him or with him that is probably good that I'm gone because now he's just doing them fully on his own, to the point where if I text my mother-in-law to be like, "Hey, just wanted to remind you of this," she will say, she'll go ask Tristan to do it and he'll already have done it, right? He knows his routine. He knows what he's supposed to do, and she's just reminding him of whatever's extra. So I then learned, like, my kid is capable. I knew that in theory, but emotionally in my anxiety, I still felt like I needed to control or oversee those things. And so it's been good for him, for Tristan, our son, to be independent and be more self-sufficient, for me to know that he's being self-sufficient, and to like what's growth for all of us, right? And so, I've struggled probably more than him being gone, and I haven't really struggled much. Like I'm fine, I'm great, but compared to, like, if we're really looking at who struggled more, it was me. It was, well, I'm the control freak in many ways, of like, I make sure everything happens, but really there's nothing I can't manage from here if I needed to, right? So it's been really good for me. And so the reason I decided to make this episode for you and let this be the topic is that I work with a lot of people who are like me, and both men and women, but there's a lot of us who are just a hot mess of like anxiety when it comes to routines. And the interesting question really is why, right? So is it that I'm just better at doing things than other people? I mean, maybe, but I really don't think that's it. Other people are very like, I'm talking about in my life, right? Like, yes, I am the default whatever, But that's not because my husband can't do it, or my what other support, my mom, my mother-in-law. It's not because they can't do it. It's because it's my responsibility, and or it's my chosen chore, whatever. But ultimately, it's just because it's a habit. I do these things. I'm usually the one that does this and this, so I'm used to doing it. And when I am not to the one doing it anymore, there's certain aspects that I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to do that. Like, I don't miss laundry, I don't miss dishes, anything like that. But other aspects of parenting, that is me, that has certain routines. And my husband, of course, we do those things together, but he left first, so I was left doing all the things, and then he doesn't have as much anxiety as I do. So he's like, his mom's got it. He knows he's not worried about it, because of the two of us, he's more level-headed than I am, right? I am the anxious one. So he can step away from the home and be like, well, mom's got it, she's fine. And then I step away and I'm like, oh, I totally trust her. But it's not about not trusting her. It's about being expecting that that's my role and that I'm just used to doing it. So I'm sorting this out loud while I say this to you, because really, part of it maybe is out of practice. Because we used to travel more before COVID, I was used to leaving and I was used to delegating, and it was fine. But because I'm not used to it, maybe that's it, right? And so, but I do think that there is a control aspect to it, right? No matter how much you trust someone else, you just know yourself. And that's maybe it for me. And my poor husband can attest to that, because there are even times with him where, like, there's really nothing I can do that he can't do, but I still am like the one that I want to do these because I do them my way and I like the way I do them, right? And so there are things, if I'm not there, if I am like, hey, did you remember? He's very patient with me, even though he's probably thinking like, yes, why are you asking me? Of course I have that taken care of, or of course I've done it. But he knows that I'm not asking because I don't trust him to do it. He knows I'm asking because I need to have that box checked in my head because of my own anxiety, right? I am the one that usually does that. I'm not there to do it. And so I need to know it's done. And I'm not asking because I don't trust you to do it. I'm asking because I need to have peace of mind. So that is a work in progress, right? Like, so to some extent, that is very okay. Like, I don't have to, it's not, you kind of think of it as terms of like, is it a problem? Well, it's only a problem if it starts creating tension, conflict. If I can't function because I'm worried about those things, well, it's a problem. If I can't truly trust the people in my life because of it, then that's a problem. But if it's, okay, I just need to ask the question and then we can move on, then that's fine, right? That is managed by me, right? So like there was maybe a time in the past where I was a little bit more obsessive and neurotic about things, but you let go a little bit, right? So um I don't know. Maybe I should have Rich do this episode with me, because I'm curious if he thinks I am more or less anxious than I used to be. And I imagine he would say I am more anxious about certain things and less anxious about other things, which would make sense, because I can tell you myself, like, there are things that I've learned to let go of that I don't overthink anymore, and then there are other things that have like taken its place, maybe. But there are certain things in life that I've just like, I accept that I can't control, and so I get to a point of let it go a little faster. So kind of going back to control, I think it's what it comes down to, right? Is control. I want to control the situation. I want to know that it's okay. And it's not control in the sense of I want to have control over someone or over a situation. It's I want to control the situation in the sense of making sure everything goes okay. I don't need it to only go my way, because I understand that that's not possible. But I need it to go in a way that gets to the conclusion in the best possible, like where we check off that box at the end, right? So if you don't want to wear certain clothes that I'd like you to wear, that's fine. My kid's 12. He doesn't need to wear what I tell him to wear. But I need you to make sure you have a sweatshirt in your backpack, because it's going to be 65 degrees when you go in the morning to cross country, right? So Am I obsessing over something or anxious over something because it's important or because it's just me being neurotic? And for you, as you're hearing this, if you have any ability, if you relate to this at all, then you know what I'm talking about, right? Learning, what do I need to be super particular about versus what do I need to let go of? Um, and I think overall, the goal is you can't have everything go the exact same way all the time because life just doesn't work. Like, I guess you can't expect things to go the same way all the time because life is just not like that, right? Some days are very similar and the routine is the exact same and you manage to walk out the door at the exact same time that you need to, but then other days something else happens and you're a minute or two late, or something completely changes and you're just, it's a disaster of a morning, right? So the goal isn't to control the, again, to have control over the situation. It's to control the details enough to have it go smoothly. But I can't control mood of someone else. I can't control external factors, weather. Just there's so many things I can't control. So I can't be obsessive over exactly how things happen. My goal is to just be able to create systems and plans that support the things getting done in the best way possible. And why I'm saying all this is because I'm learning constantly that while my systems are great and I will continue to create them and implement them, like this week, seeing that some of the routines have gone, they've followed my system, my kiddo and my mother-in-law, they followed my system and it's gone well, but there are aspects of that they've modified and done it in their style. That's fine, right? It's so the example I always think of, I remember this very clearly when we were shopping for diaper bags before my son was born, and we were putting things on our baby registry and all that. I remember I picked a bag, and I don't remember what made me do this. I don't know if I had read it in a book, but I made sure to encourage my husband to have a separate bag. He picked it out, his backpack or whatever. And I remember, I must have read it somewhere. I just can't remember where, but I remember learning that it was important to let him be responsible for his diaper bag, right? So what that means is you're going to pack it. You're going to make sure you have everything you need in it, diapers, passies, bottles, everything. And I am not going to be responsible for it because this is yours and I cannot control you. And I remember I do remember, I read it in that, I think it was that What to Expect When You're Expecting book. And I remember being like, ugh, that sounds awful. What do you mean? So I'm not allowed to double check that he has enough diapers and that he has enough water bottles and wipes and all that. Why wouldn't I just double check? What if he was missing something and he didn't notice? So immediately I realized I'm crazy. I'm already obsessing. We haven't even had this kid and I'm already worried about the diaper bag that we don't even have yet, right? And the idea behind it was I have to trust that this other person is either going to get it, do it the right way, or he'll make a mistake. And if he doesn't have a diaper when he needs one, he'll probably never make that mistake again. Regardless, it's not my responsibility. And that right there, I can tell you, is where I struggle, is even if it's not my responsibility, I am a very, I don't even know the word for it. I'm always trying to make sure everyone has what they need, even if it's not responsibility, right? So I know the line. Obviously, I am big on boundaries. And if you've ever heard anything I've talked about before, then you know that. I am not responsible for you and your decisions, but if you're around me and you need something, or I see that you need something, or maybe I can do something for you, unless it's something I've already set a boundary around, then I'm going to be like, hey, do you need this? Can I do this? Hey, don't forget this. Do you, whatever. And that applies, if there's a kid at my house, someone else's, my son's friend, hey, what time do you need him picked up? Do you need me to drop him off? Hey, are you hungry? Always making sure I'm offering, hey, don't make sure your mom said you can't do this, don't do this, whatever. But also knowing if some parent is parenting their kid differently than I do, that's none of my business, right? But if you're in my home and you're hungry, I'm going to feed you, right? Whereas there are other parents that don't do that for their whatever. That's a small example. But I'm always like, what do you need? What do you need? So if you're walking out, hey, do you have your phone? Do you have your keys? Like that's maybe my anxiety of always making sure I'm ready. But going back to the diaper bag example, that was a really good thing for me. It's such a basic instruction, but to me, it was much more than let my husband have his own bag and pack it. It was, oh my gosh, I can't walk into this parenting thing expecting that we're going to do everything my way. Now, I like doing things my way, and my way is usually the good way, but it's not always the good way. And there are plenty of things that can be done that are equally good. They're just different. And so I've had to learn over the years that I have to let things go and I have to chill, and I don't always have to be the overseer of everything, but it is a work in progress. I don't know that I'll ever get to a point where I don't have this kind of anxiety, but that's okay as long as it stays functional, right? Like I've had other things in the past that I've obsessed over, and well, that was not good, and I had to really focus in and intentionally work to overcome that. But this isn't one of those, right? Like being very aware of the importance of systems and plans to create things, to help things go well, that's fine. Worrying about it, even when you've created it, that's where we want to say, okay, that's enough, right? Like I've already created the system, I made the list, everyone's following it while I'm gone or whatever, it's fine. Then I don't need to worry and double check and double check and double check. I would say that's probably the thing that I'm having to work on this week. And I can say it's gotten better every day that I've been here, right? The first day I was probably texting, between Tristan and my mother-in-law, texting more like, hey, don't forget this, don't forget this. And then as I was realizing they were doing all the things and doing them well, I stopped having to ask as much. And then naturally, I stopped feeling the need to ask as much because they were doing all the things, and I started building more trust, right? The trust was there to begin with. The issue was I'm overthinking everything. And so it helped me stop overthinking when I saw that things were going well. So now apply that to your relationship. What are some things in your marriage, in your home, in your parenting, whatever, where you are obsessive or your expectation is that it has to be done a certain way in a certain time and all of the things? Does that exist for you? You might not have that. Most people, I think, do. Most people are particular about certain things, and the things they're particular about, they can get defensive over those things if they don't go the way they want them to. So what is that for you? What are the things that you find in your home, whether it's in your routine, the dishes, the laundry, mowing the grass, whatever, that you're pretty protective over, like you want it done a certain way, whether you do it that way or you try to control how someone else does it? What are those things, right? And again, there are certain things like if your kid is, I don't know, if you're teaching your kid to brush their teeth and they only brush half of their teeth, well, okay, you should probably be a pain in the butt on that one and insist that they do it your way because it's the right way. But if it's that they want to style their hair in a way that you don't particularly love, or they want to wear clothes that you don't particularly love, well, you probably can let that go. Now, if they don't want to wear a jacket when it's 30 degrees, you should probably be crazy about that one, right? That's important. But then when you look at our spouses, it's the same. I think we have strengths and weaknesses. There's certain things that one person's better at than the other, or one person kind of does have more, takes on a responsibility for certain things. It's their chore or their whatever. And so being careful not to micromanage each other, being careful to trust each other. If there's something that the other person is responsible for doing or has chosen to take that on, and they do it well, but you kind of wish it was done a little different, then you have choices. You can talk about it and be like, hey, how stressful would it be if you did it this way? Like, I'm trying not to be neurotic, but like it kind of bugs me, blah, blah, blah. Or you can say, look, I'm really going to be a pain in the butt on this one. Can I take this chore on and do it myself? But what you don't want to do is be like, you have to do it this way. Or, you know what, you always do it wrong. Why don't you do it my way? Like, if you're that particular about it, and if you have a gentle conversation and they're like, oh, that's fine, I'll do it that way. Okay, great. But if they don't want to do it your way and you're just being kind of difficult, then that becomes your chore. You can take that on as your own, or you can just be okay with them doing it their way. And of course, we're not talking about like, oh, well, they don't want to do it. They're doing it wrong on purpose because they want me to do it. You know the difference between someone who's working with you and being a good partner versus someone who's not, right? So we're talking about if you just know you're neurotic, like I am neurotic about the dishes. No one can do the dishes the way I do. I just don't want to allow that. It's just the thing that I'm particular about. So no one does them but me. You just sit it down and walk away. Don't touch it. Just sit it in the sink. Don't even rinse it because you're going to do it wrong, right? That's me. I'm crazy. I know that. I accept that. I'm comfortable with that. But other things, if I want certain things done a certain way and they're not going to get done that way, but I'm not as crazy about it, like the dishes, oh well, let it go. Just be grateful someone else is doing it, right? So it's just important to be mindful of, are you controlling? Are you not? But if you are the recipient of maybe some anxiety and your spouse is the one that's kind of overly anxious about things or insistent on doing things a certain way, you also have to find a nice way to point that out. Not be, you don't want to say like, oh, quit nagging me, or right, that's not very helpful. But if it's like, hey, I notice that every time I do the dishes, you always come after me and you do them, and you like, what's going on? What's the problem? Is there something with the way I'm doing them that you don't like? Are you just really particular? What's happening? And then you can have that conversation, but you have to be able to address it, because realistically, it's those little things that build up to bigger things, right? I didn't say anything because I didn't want to nag, but now I'm so irritated that I'm going to blow up at you, right? Most of us can understand and have experienced that the smallest issues are the ones that sometimes lead to the biggest blow ups because we just don't handle them when they first come up. So be mindful of, how does your anxiety or how does your particularness play into the overall functionality of your life, your day to day? Is it leading to, frustrations and annoyances? Are you bottling things up? Are you keeping things to yourself when you need to find a nice way to discuss them? Or do you need to let things go and work on that? And there are things that I've brought up to my husband on like, hey, I won't like it when you do it this way. Can you do it this way? And there's other stuff that I'm like, I'm being ridiculous. I'm going to let this go. And sometimes it's the middle, right? Where I say something, and then as I'm saying it or after we've talked about it, I realize I'm being ridiculous. I need to let it go, right? So, and sometimes you can talk it out with someone else. I've had things where I've, gotten to talk it out with a friend or a family member that I'm close to, and they could be like, yeah, it's probably not a big deal. You probably want to let that go. And I'm like, yes, you're right. And that applies to work. I mean, there's plenty of times where I want to jump in and do something for someone because I can just do it more easily instead of having to explain it. But the responsibility needs to lie with that other person. And so I need to go ahead and let them do it, even if they're going to mess it up, because that's part of learning, right? With our kid, I feel like that's most of why we just let kids figure things out on their own, because that's how they learn, right? Okay, fine. You want to do it that way? Fine. And then they do it, and either it goes well or it doesn't. But there's a lesson in there one way or another, right? So with that in mind, I'm going to wrap this up. It's fun doing solo episodes. I kind of miss it. But these do go shorter than the ones with guests, right? Because there's two of us. But I hope that was helpful to you. It was helpful to me to talk out some of my own thoughts. And I will talk to you later. All right, bye.